Zinogre, or Jin'ōga. Jin'ōga in Japanese. So I built this guy in 2021. I built him alongside Brachydios. The way I have the lighting right now does not do it justice with the whites. I gotta start off and say immediately that if the sound is whack, I'm sorry, because I've got a microphone set up and it's pointed at me, but there's a chance that maybe the settings are all whack. This is a learning process, alright? I did test it and it seemed fine, but you never know. So this build is based off of the portable third version of Zinogre. It's not the world version, you can tell. The world version is a little bit chunkier, a little bit fluffier. You'll notice that he's not charged up, and the build does not have a charged up version. I felt that if I did a charged up version, I would not have been able to do it justice. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the build. I really like the colors. I think that they're quite striking when put together. I think that's just color blocking and the textures. I owe a lot of that to Capcom, of course, because they just did a really, really good job with the color blocking on this monster to begin with. You can clearly see what parts of the monster are what. The turquoise-ish aqua green colors mixed with the white and the gold are very striking. It feels like a flash of lightning, and that's exactly what they wanted. And I think, yeah, it's meant to look like a flash of lightning in the forest, and they did it very well, while also having that, like, stocky, sort of large predator look. I know that he's meant to be sort of wolf-like, but really there's more dragon in him than there is wolf. He does have a really weird body structure though, just as an animal. Like his top half is really dense and tall, but his bottom half is like tiny. His lower legs feel unfit for anything. He's very arm focused, like the whole animal is built around using its arms, which means it probably isn't a very good runner, you'd assume. Very different design than a wolf, and this is why I like to say that Zinogre really isn't a wolf. He's more of a dragon than he is a wolf. So something I'm going to do in all these videos is I'm actually going to give a size comparison. Here is my minifigure. So, I mean, that's roughly the size. It's maybe a little bit too big, but if you were to put the minifigure in full armor, he'd probably look just right next to a monster such as Zinogre. In the games, the monsters always look a lot smaller than they actually are, but they're actually quite big. Also, just for the sake of, for fun, here is a random Bionicle. When compared to like other figures, Zinogre is a little bit smaller, but I'm sure he would still look great on a shelf with other figures. If you have like anime figures or something, he'd probably still look great next to something like that. So let's talk about posability really, really quick. The thing about this build is one of my older builds, and I find that a lot of my older builds, I focused a bit too much on getting the look right and not enough on making sure it's playable. There are some poses you can do, though. For one, the head is on a ball joint, so the head can just move like freely. The mouth can open. It can open pretty wide. The horns are individually posable. I know that when he gets charged up, they do sort of stand up a bit, so I wanted to make sure that those were posable. And also it just helps if they're on a ball joint to get that specific look that Zinogre has. The arms are probably the most posable part of the build altogether. The arms can move forward and back like that. These can actually bend pretty far back, all the way actually. Not that Zinogre would ever want to bend his arms all the way back like that, but you can get him pretty low to the ground, or you can also have him stand pretty tall. There's a couple different big poses you can do, and you can very easily, he can stand pretty firm on just the 3 legs there. The official figure, the SH Monster Arts, probably has more posability than mine. The whole back is on a ball joint here. That can move. The legs can move forward and back to the side. They can splay out pretty far. The foot can move a bit. Of course, all of the claws are individually posable, as they should be. The shoulder sort of thing, it poses a little bit, but it's not really meant to move. It's meant to be just part of this like whole arm muscle mass, but you can move it up to kind of help the hand get up just a little bit more. If you wanted to, you could probably have him Maybe do like a back stretch. A little bit silly. The main posable pieces are definitely his arms and the head. And that's where most of his actions come from, right? Like, it's mostly he attacks with his head, his arms. The sad thing is he doesn't have a lot of posability in the tail. So the SH Monster Arts probably has better posability than mine when it comes to the tail. It can rotate, which is great, and this smaller section can also rotate, but when it comes to actually like side to side, that's about as best you can get. It doesn't go much farther than that. It also does not go up very much, which I don't think on Zinogre in any of his animations he necessarily lifts it very high. You can lower it pretty low, so if you wanted to do like one of his breakdancing moves, you probably could do something like that. This model really works the best when it's just in its neutral position. Now I'm going to quickly talk about the weak points of the model, and there are 3 points on this model that are very fragile. So in the back of each of the shoulders, these little sections here, they pop off pretty easily, so just be careful when you're posing. They don't really pop off and play that much. Like, I can move him around and they don't really pop off, and like if I do this, like they're not really gonna pop off, but there are times, well, this popped off. I guess this is a weak point. The head is the weakest point of the model. It's very easy for it to just crumble apart very, very easily, and it's because the whole structure here is very loose. The clutch power is very, very small, so the head is definitely the weakest point. It's only going to knock off if you're aggressive with it. If you're gentle with it, it's not going to break off. Zinogre was difficult. I wanted to make sure that the head of Zinogre wasn't too big. With a lot of my models, the head is oversized, and it's because I focus on the head first and foremost. That's where you look first when you look at a model. You look at the head. With Zinogre, I wanted to make sure it was small because I didn't want it to look too big because it would look way too goofy, and I wanted to make sure that Zinogre looked very cool. And the issue with that came with, one, the fragility of it. It's very fragile, but then also I feel like we're kind of missing the ears here. Like the snout is fine, the jaw is fine, the horns are fine, but the ears are kind of missing, and I just wasn't able to figure that out. It would be even more fragile if I were to put in ears at this point. So this is just going to have to do for now. Another thing I'm kind of disappointed about with this model, and I feel like I could probably improve at some point, is the fur around the neck, and actually just the neck in general. When you pose it down, it kind of looks like the head is just disconnected altogether. When it's up in its neutral stance, that looks fine, but the moment you start posing it, it starts to look like a little bit disconnected. So maybe someone can figure out a better solution for that. Now, of course, instructions for this model are available on my Patreon. I've been slowly making and adding the instructions for my monsters. If you'd like access to the instructions, go on to my Patreon, linked below, and sign up for the 2nd tier membership, and you'll get access to all of my instructions. More instructions are on the way. I'll release large monster instructions with the videos, maybe a little bit early for some of them, but small monsters I will just release when I feel like it, because small monsters are really easy to make instructions for, and I don't mind just like pumping them out, like no big deal. If you do follow along the instructions, you may get a little bit confused on some of the aspects of the model, particularly the tail, because the tail is a little bit confusing. Zinogre's tail has 2 prongs, right? And I was trying to get the look of the 2 prongs. But in order to pull this off, this is actually a bit of an illegal connection. And it says that in the instructions. This is an illegal connection. These pieces are being bent in order to get this look. In the instructions, you'll be told to assemble each of these tail prongs separately. But you'll notice that these 2 teal pieces, the turquoise pieces, will be overlapping in the instructions. This 2x3 should be on top of the 2x3 wedge plate. It should be on top. And this is how it should look in the end, and then they are attached to this center thing on an angle. As you can see, this is on a slight angle, this is all on a slight angle, so that when you attach it, you get that slight angle on both of them. And again, this is an illegal connection. This is technically putting strain on the pieces. It's nothing bad. It's not going to warp the pieces or anything, But LEGO would never allow this in one of their official builds. They'd probably come up with another solution, but this is in order to get the very, very slight angle on the tail prongs there. Another thing that's mentioned in the instructions that's a little bit confusing, I was going to take this piece off. This was taken off of here. This is part of the shoulders. Technically, there is a bit of a gap in between this ball joint piece and this bracket piece here, but the instructions will have it so that there is a gap there. And there's meant to be a gap there. These pieces don't mathematically line up with that one. That's fine. You just have to kind of spread it out just like a little bit, which again is a bit of an illegal connection, but otherwise it'll be a little bit less sturdy. So you just want to make sure you just fiddle it all in so that it kind of fits. And then this piece here, fiddle it until it sort of snaps into place there, which again, this is also an illegal connection. So just keep that in mind. There we go. I originally despised Zinogre back in 2010 on Portable Third. I saw him as, like, Zinogre was meant to be this replacement of Lagiacrus, which isn't true, but he is a thunder monster, and Lagiacrus was not, you know, brought back for Portable Third, so I always viewed him as, oh, they can't get Lagiacrus to work in Portable Third, so they decided to add this other thunder monster instead. But I grew to really like him over the years. Around the time of Monster Hunter 4, you know, Zinogre became this sort of reliable monster for me, and I have a pretty easy time. Sometimes I like monsters that are reliable, and I can test out, you know, new techniques. He always fights the exact same way, so it's really a reliable test dummy. Zinogre sort of started a trend of anime cool monsters, which are hit or miss. Some people don't like them, some people like them. It depends on the monster, really. To me, I really like Zinogre's relationship, the symbiotic relationship with the Thunderbugs, and how it uses Thunderbugs for the electricity. It doesn't have electricity organs in it. I always felt that really grounded the monster, and despite his flashy anime-like design, he had a rather timid and a well-explained abilities. So he didn't feel too out of place in Monster Hunter, and he didn't feel too supernatural in a series like Monster Hunter. So overall, I really like Zinogre, despite how over the top he is. Fantastic. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you guys go out there, are able to build your own Zinogre. Please follow me on Twitter if you've built your own Zinogre. Send me a picture of it at me on Twitter. I'd be glad to see it. If you want the instructions, once again, that's on my second tier membership on my Patreon. There's also instructions for Stygian Zinogre. I was going to do Thunderlord, but I looked at the parts, what was available, and unfortunately, specifically this piece is only available in so many colors. You'll notice on Stygian it's dark gray when it really should be black to fit the rest of the model. With Thunderlord Zinogre, his main color is like a bright green, and a lot of these pieces are not available in that color. So I decided I'm not going to do Thunderlord Zinogre. I'm sure someone out there could probably do a custom, maybe change up what parts are used, but I feel like it's for the best that I don't bother with Thunderlord and we just do Stygian. I want to thank my patrons for supporting me. I love you guys. This is wonderful. I did not expect a big turnout like this. I'm hoping to make content that's consistent like this. Maybe improve the setup here because this is kind of shoddy, but whatever. So next time I will be doing Mizitsune. So I hope that you guys like Mizitsune because I really like this build a lot. And I'm very excited to have that be the next video and the next batch of instructions. So stay tuned for that one. I think you guys are going to love it. I'm trying to decide what I'll do after Mizitsune. Right now, the popularity votes are going to Brachydios, Astalos, Daimohermitar, and Kashella Diora. But if you guys want another monster that's not one of those, comment down below. You know, your voices will be heard, and I'll do whichever ones are the most popular. But at this point, it's probably going to be Daimohermitar. Let's just say that. It's probably going to be Daimohermitar. So as always, just comment below. Thank you all for watching. Keep building, and have fun.